shortly afterwards, several of their supporters came back on a motorcycle with their flags, shouting and screaming, and again throwing stones at our supporters. And actually, two of their supporters were feisty enough to get off their motorcycle, came in the center of our crowd, and started waving their PUP flags. Of course, they were escorted out. Their flags were taken away from them, and they were escorted out of the crowd. But they didn't stop there. A young guy who actually is a student at the high school in San Ignacio came back upset because apparently they felt disrespected. They actually came back with a machete. So at that time, we called the police and asked them to please come and intervene. But the police was taking so long because we were way back in one of the remote villages. So we were trying to monitor the situation to make sure that nobody would get hurt. A young guy who was apparently a friend of this fellow who had the machete in his hand tried to go and convince him to just leave and don't harm anybody. And that is when this guy, supposedly a friend of this person, waved the machete at him and actually chopped him in the neck. When we saw this happening, a few of our guys rushed in to try to save him because this guy was continuously swinging his machete, and it could have struck the person again, could have indeed gotten killed or seriously injured. At that time, one of our supporters was trying to save the person who was injured, trying to restrain the person with the machete, got a chop wound to his head. In fact, when he reached the hospital, the doctor didn't know how he was still walking because two major veins in his temple were cut. At that time, we weren't aware of the grievous injury that he had received, but later on, we did continuous tests, and we realized that the machete had not only chopped him, it had fractured his skull. And in turn, in the morning, he was bleeding out of his nose. So there was certainly an internal head injury that this person has received as a result of this chopping. And while trying to further subdue this person to avoid more injury, a third person was chopped in the arm and received about 10 stitches to stitch that up. But what I would like to set straight is that we were having our peaceful rally, and it was the members, the fanatics of the opposition that came to start to give us trouble, threw stones at us, insulted our people, and all we were trying to do is avoid injuries to happen, and in turn, these people started waving their machetes. Actually, the chairperson of the village was arrested because he himself, instead of coming to pacify his people, pulled out a machete as well and threatened a couple of the villagers if they wouldn't respect him, that he would have to do the same thing. A third person came with a firearm and exposed it to our supporters and basically made them know, you know what, unless you guys step back and leave us alone and respect us, you will have to even draw a firearm. So it is clearly seen that these individuals came there under the influence of alcohol from the rally they had in San Ignacio and had absolutely no respect for our peaceful meeting that we had there, and had the only thing in their mind was to cause trouble. I am pleading to the public countrywide, election time is election time. Every individual has the right to support whichever party they wish to support. We dare not to interfere with the happenings of the opposition, and we hope and pray that they will not interfere with the activities of our government, of the United Democratic Party standard bearers, because people do get hyped up and things will happen that should not happen. So I just plead to the whole public of Belize to please have a peaceful election period